What are the odds? That is what I'm calling this week's episode of Deported to Paradise. Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya, and I got deported to Mexico in July of 2023 after living in the US for over 40 years. So, I am going to tell you about some things that happened, that some natural disasters that I just was not expecting, and they came about the first 3 months I was here. Um, yeah, so let's talk about that. And please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share. Okay. Well, I had been here I felt like I'd just gotten here, and really, I kind of did just get here. 3 months is not that long. So it was about 2 or 3 months. Um, I think it was 2 months after I got here that the first thing happened and there was an earthquake. So let me start with saying that I've never been through an earthquake before, never lived anywhere that had an earthquake. And I did not know that there were earthquakes here in PV. So, and maybe I should have known, I don't know. But with everything else going on, it's just not something that I thought about. Maybe other people would, but just did not. So, the day started out normal. I got up, fed my dog, went to work, and I don't really remember what time it was. I think it was around noon or so that all of a sudden it seemed like everybody was just like jumping up and running out. And, when things like that happen, it my brain just freezes, like what's going on, everything kind of looks surreal, am I dreaming? And then I look over and the chair's shaking, kind of bouncing a little bit. Finally somebody grabbed me by the arm and was like, hey, let's go, there's an earthquake. So there we go, we were on the second floor and went downstairs. And we just waited downstairs until, I don't know, for 5 or 10 minutes, I think. There were a couple of tremors after that, but uh, that's pretty much all, like the bad part. It turned out that it was 6.1 on the Richter scale, I think is what it's called. So um, it wasn't a small earthquake. It was that, from what I'm being told, is kind of a big deal. Well, not huge, but But and it was just scary because I was like, how long is this going to last? Is it over? Like, what's going to happen? Because like I said, I don't know anything about earthquakes. And then after it was done, I was just a nervous wreck because Tupac was at home. I was, I called my neighbor. I was like, is everything okay? And of course she said yes, but I was still just frazzled already. I lived on the second floor, so I just imagined Tupac being down on, just, yeah, I was just imagining the worst. So I let my job know that I was leaving. They knew how panicked I was and how scared I was, so I wanted to check on Tupac, and of course he was fine. Of course he was fine. Um, but it's just something that, like I said, I'd just gotten there, and it's just not anything that you're prepared to go through, especially new to a new country. So that was the first thing. After that, there was a hurricane, Hurricane Lydia. So that, oh my gosh, I've never been through a hurricane before either. Um, or tornado. I'm not really sure what the difference is, but I've never been through either one of those. So it was just really weird that it just didn't seem real. Like, okay, I just went through an earthquake, now there's a hurricane. So, anyways, the city knew that there was a hurricane coming. It was Hurricane Lydia, and that's funny because that's my mom's middle name. So, but so they let everybody know that we were going to shut down at, I think, 1 o'clock. So everybody at 1 o'clock was just going to go home. So the good thing is that we got to leave at like 10 or something, uh, from work so that we didn't have to wait till 1, and that's a good thing, because at 1 it was totally congested. Everybody was trying to get home. There was no the buses were completely full, so I got home in 40-45 minutes, whereas if I would have waited, it would have taken me hours. So I am grateful for that. So everything shut down early, and I don't know, I guess it was around, I mean, it started raining at like 6 o'clock. So I guess, and it was raining hard after that. uh I think it probably was around 10 o'clock where it was raining and you could see the wind just really blowing. I looked outside and there was just like things flying by, like branches, garbage cans, just all kinds of things. And that's from the second floor. So and then the electricity goes out, and it was just so scary. I couldn't call anybody because of the Wi-Fi being out, and I'm there by myself. I think if I was with people, it would have been totally different. But it was me and Tupac, and Tupac was a puppy. So he was all over the place. Now he's scared of everything. But back then he wanted to be out, in the middle of everything. So, and then when I went, I, I locked me and Tupac into my room because there's no windows in there. But when I went out to check in the living room, there was water coming in from one of the windows. And so then I'm thinking, what's going on? Is it flooded that much? But it wasn't. It was just, I get, there was rain, a lot of rain. And I guess there was a crack down at the window that was making the water come through. So, but I mean, really after that, it just got, like I said, really rainy, really windy. And then eventually it just stopped. I don't think it, the actual hurricane ran or traveled through where I was at. So it didn't make a lot of damage where I was at. But I know it did a lot of damage in the downtown area. Um, the next day we didn't go to work. The Wi-Fi was out, electricity was out in a lot of the neighborhoods. So we, I stayed home from work for 1 or 2 days, I think, till they were able to turn the electricity back on. And then, everybody was just cleaning up. So, and that was just, you know, it was just unbelievable to me that there was an earthquake and then a hurricane, and then I don't know, maybe, oh no, actually, I do remember this one. About 3 or 4 days after the hurricane, there was a flood. So a lot of people ask, well, why didn't they warn you guys? Why didn't y'all leave early? Well, I don't think the city knew that we were about to get hit with a flood. It had been raining a lot, but that day it rained a lot, like, and it rained hard. Um, I ended up, oh no, that when I left work, I was taking buses back then just because they're so much cheaper than Uber. Uh, I was waiting for a bus and they were all jam packed full. And then when you looked for an Uber, they were like $30 or $40. So finally, I just hopped on one of the really full buses. I was literally hanging um, out of the door, because that's just how people do it here. Because I had been waiting for like an hour to an hour and a half, and I'm like, no, I'm going. I don't care. So I hung on really tight. I mean, I was on there really tight, and it took about 30 minutes for me to get home. Well, when I get out of the bus, the water is between ankle and mid calf high. Okay, it was just like, it felt like just trying to get to my apartment. It's about maybe a block and a half from the bus stop to my apartment, and it felt like I was hiking, or I don't know, it just felt weird, in the water. I was just hoping I didn't fall, which I didn't. But so then I went, I finally got to my apartment, and you could see, like, when you looked out, you could see like little rivers, like, because it was so, there was so much water, so it looked like the water could have knocked me over because there was a lot of, I don't know what I'm trying to say or how to explain it, but there was just a lot of water. I'm just glad I didn't fall. So, but I know in my part of Puerto Vallarta, it did not get really bad as far as the flood, but in the main part, where the Malecon and all that is, they were like waist deep water. They I saw a bunch of them and they were all like, waist deep. Some of them were higher. So after that, it took about, I think, 1 or 2 days because, again, the electricity went out, no Wi-Fi, things like that. Where I was at, it was not that bad because, like I said, the electricity, or I'm sorry, the water did not go as high as it did over there. But I just remember seeing videos of just cars literally floating, of buses floating, of people, getting taken by the water and trying to hold on to something. I mean, it was terrifying. But and there has not been, you know, another flood like that. Right now, it's not rainy season, but rainy season will be here in September, and it rains for like 3 or 4 or 5 months straight. So let's just pray that it does not happen again because that was just really awful. So, and what made all of this harder was just that, I had just gotten here. It was like, God was playing a cruel joke on me. That's what it felt like because I'm already going through all this stuff, and now it's like, bam, you're going to have to go through an earthquake, a hurricane, and a flood. Let's see how you do, So it was absolutely insane. And then, which of course I have no choice but to deal with it, go on, survive. But mentally, it did really, I think, do some damage, or I don't know if I'd say damage, but it just really affected my mental state. I I was scared after that to ride the buses if it was raining, or even to go out anywhere if it was raining because I was scared it was going to be a flood. And I eventually got over that part, but the earthquakes, I try not to think about them because those do and can happen more often than the hurricane or the flood. As far as the flood goes, like I said, it's not rainy season right now, and I'm living somewhere different, so I think the water system, the sewers and stuff are much better here than they were where I used to live. So, let's see. I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, and like looking when I think about those 3 months that all this happened, it just seems like a blur. Like, did it really happen? Was I really there? Like, it seems like I just don't remember much of what happened exactly. I mean, I remember, but it just seems like a dream. Like I said, I was going through so much at that point in time, which I'm kind of glad I went through all that at the beginning because after that, I felt like I could really just go through anything and, hopefully survive it. So I am kind of glad it happened at the beginning versus now. So um, I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm moving on. But whether there's an earthquake, a hurricane, or a flood, I mean, you just have to keep going no matter what. I mean, we have no choice. But I think I'd be able to handle it better now than I was back then. So, thank y'all so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share. And we will see you next week at here on Deported to Paradise.